I'm your host, Kinetic, and you're watching GameOnEnd. Hello, and welcome to our add-on series. Today, we're taking a look at damage meters. We're using the add-on control panel to enable and disable as we go. So let's take a look. All right, so the add-ons we have today range from very simple to very complicated. So we'll run down the list here and just name off the add-ons that we're checking out. We have Details. Details has a lot of extra modules that you can enable and disable, including raid checks, some helpful things for encounters. They also have a 3D model viewer, but we're just checking out the damage meters for right now. We also have Numeration, which is just a simple damage and healing meter. We have Recount, which also has a lot of extra features. We have Simple DPS, SCADA, which has a lot of extra modular things, and Tiny DPS, which is just a basic damage and healing meter as well. So we're going to go ahead and leave them all running right now and see what happens here. We're going to queue up for a quick dungeon, and then we'll try these out. Okay, so a couple of these have offered to just reset our numbers here. We'll go ahead and hit OK.
What brings you here?
What brings you here? Ancestors watch
Okay,
over you.
and we're just going to go ahead and start running this and see what happens. Okay, so far they're all showing pretty much the same thing. Seem to be, updating pretty quickly. This one seems to be pretty quick and responsive. A lot of times these add-ons have some settings that you can update as far as the speed or frequency that they do update at. Alright, so here we've got a little bit of discrepancy. These two are showing the priest. At the top here, they seem to be resetting on the fight, so that may be that. We'll take a look at that. And these other ones seem to be overall. But again, they're showing slightly different numbers. This one's showing 162, this one's showing 126. Okay, so this one is showing 170 currently for the priest, 194, 161, 180, 164. So these two seem to be pretty close. this one as well. Alright, so we can see here again, they're pretty close. One, it's hovering just over 180, just over 180. Okay, so we can see on this one here, if we hover over, we get a quick breakdown of the spells being used by whichever character we're hovering over, which is kind of cool, just on the fly. We also get it on this one here. Okay, so another thing to show here is actually under the in the chat here, but the details add-on is showing me a little bit of information, like basically who started the encounter, who did the first hit. So that kind of stuff is a small little, nice thing to have. You can just see who pulled, And another thing to be aware of is that a few of these add-ons do data sharing and a few of them do not. If you are in a regular raiding group or, doing Mythic Plus or something like that, it is nice to, if you have your entire group running the same meter, that they can share data between each other, and it actually helps to make the information more accurate. It's not a huge difference, but it's just small things that can help it to know where certain sources are coming from as far as like healing or other things like mitigation and stuff. So overall we can see here that the meters seem to be pretty consistent here. This simple DPS seems to always be pinning yourself at the top. So just so you know, it's doing that. So we're actually below here, these two, as far as this meter is concerned.
Greetings, traveler. Go in peace.
Goddess bless you.
Okay, so on this one, we basically just clicked on the top bar here, and then it let us choose a different thing. So we've chosen overall damage. That's switched it out of the current fight mode, which it was in before. And let's see here. We can hover over this here, the menu, and go to overall data here. Okay, so now we've got all of our meters lining up here. Okay, so even though we've got some small discrepancies here in the number, as we can see here, one is saying overall is at about 180, and on this one it says 189, 199, and 161. So of course, as with anything, preference is going to be probably more important than the tiny bit of accuracy difference. The discrepancy probably honestly comes down more to what it's tracking, how it's tracking. But we can see here, so just to compare these two, we have arcane shot being 67, aim shot being 15, and this says arcane shot is 56 and aim shot is 13. But it's also showing the pet damage as a portion of it. This is separating the pet down here at the bottom. So, you know, little things like that. You really would need to just kind of play with these and see which one kind of gives you the information in the way that you would like to see it. You know, this one just gives you a breakdown here of personal versus pet. And this one is not showing anything, but if we click into it, it's showing personal and pet all stacked here, but it does denote which damage is coming from the pet. And then we right click to exit. Okay, this simple DPS doesn't seem to have any breakdown here. Okay, so we'll take a look at the settings here, but also let's note a few things here. So while this is showing different DPS amounts in a pretty big range here, and granted this is a very low level, but the ranges seem to hold pretty true even at you know, higher level characters and stuff, that from my experience. But the thing to notice here is that the damage reported numbers are still actually pretty consistent. So 167, 164, 167, and 167. So this one here, I assume the discrepancy there is just that it's combining, or it's not combining the pet damage. But even down to the lowest one, 1.1 thousand, 1.1 thousand, 1.1, 1.1. So they're all actually tracking the information accurately. It's just a difference of how they decide to show these numbers, what they consider, you know, damage or whatever. So we can click through here and switch to something different. So we can switch to healing. And let's see if we can find this here. To healing. Healing done. And simple DPS doesn't have healing. Let's see. It's overall, so we go to right click here and we do healing done. And right click here and do show healing. Okay, so now similarly we can see the healing done in the group, and we have 12.6, 12.4, 12.4, and 12.4. So I'm not sure what the difference is here for the breakdown, but we have Chi Wave, Heal, and Fuse, all showing the exact same numbers. Oh, this one is missing, I guess, one Chi Wave, 11.4 and 11.5. Breakdown here, 11.3, and this doesn't give a breakdown. So either way, all of these add-ons are tracking the information the same. It just comes down to do you want any of the extra features? If you would like to track, deaths, debuffs, dispels, damage taken, those are great things for raid groups, and Mythic Plus especially. You can see who seems to be getting hit by damage frequently. But other than that, if you're just wanting a simple way to just track your damage compared to your group, maybe for testing on a training dummy, in my opinion, meters are not actually very helpful in a group environment, only because if you are just basing performance on meters, you're really missing out on the key component, which is always just, mechanics, and, being in the right places at the right time. As long as you are not, really underperforming as far as damage or healing or tanking, those kind of things, it is good to have the information in the background, but I tend to run a meter and maybe hide it while I'm in combat or something, because it really is just distracting. It's a bar that, in my opinion, you don't really need to see while you're fighting. You're really just trying to perform your best. Obviously, a dead DPS is doing no DPS. A dead healer can't keep anybody alive. So the difference is just maybe in learning to optimize your rotations and things like that. So they are definitely helpful on training dummies and things like that, but also, running them in the background and then comparing them afterwards and just seeing how you did compared to the rest of your group. Obviously, you have to take into consideration, gearing levels and competency on class and things like that. But overall, these meters all seem to be pretty good at tracking equally. Again, it just comes down to the extra features that you want here. So we will rank these here just based on how they seem to me. Simple DPS, I'm not sure if that is really working too well. As far as just giving you the information you need, we can take a look here and see if there are any options for it. So simple DPS. Yeah, there are no options. It's just show and hide. So simple DPS, I would probably give a pass. Tiny DPS is the next simplest here. You can Alt and then drag it around with left click to move it. You can right click to get the menu, and you can switch here between overall data, current, switch between showing damage and healing, and then you can reset. You can also, of course, print the results into any of these chat channels. You can also whisper them to players or targets. And then you have the options here. So you can change the font, size, and font to whatever you have installed. You can change what information is shown if you'd like to show percentages, if you'd like to show rank, and short formats. You can also change the outline on the name. And then you can adjust the bar height and the spacing and how many bars you have visible. You can then also adjust text color, the backdrop color of the bars, frame border, frame backdrop. You can dim out the class colors, and you can swap which is kind of interesting. This gives you a unique look. And then you have the other options here, whether you want it shown in PvP, pet battles, solo, hide in combat, hide out of combat. You can also have it grow upwards if you want to put it down here, at the bottom of your bars. And you can show or hide the minimap button. You can have it reset when you join a new group, update more frequently, and then you can also have it track the spell detail if you would like a breakdown, and then the depth of how many spells and targets it keeps track of. So you can see just your top 3 spells, or raise that more. And then you can also just have it track boss fights. You can also middle click the mouse button, which is on your scroll wheel if you have it, and that will also just do a quick reset. Okay, so I believe this one is recount. So we have a lot of things we can do here. We can do the printing. We can take a look at the options here. So we can tell it when we'd like to reset our information, with or without a confirmation, only keeping boss segments. Then we can show or check when we would like to see this information. And then we can choose a little bit more filtering here. And then we have these filters here. So it's a little grid here which we can see. We can tell it when we would like to see what information. This is basically saying, okay, so is this piece of information shown in the main window? This is, would we like to see ourselves in the window? Would we like to see people that we're grouped with, people that we're ungrouped with, and then hostile players and pets. Then we can also show bosses, which is interesting to see how much damage bosses are doing or things like that. You can choose to merge pets with owners, absorbs with heals, absorbs with damage. Then we have whether this information is recorded so that we can pull it back up later. The time associated with the combat, recording deaths, and then tracking buffs and debuffs. Then we can go to how the window looks. We can show or hide the printing menus here, config, reset, file, all that stuff. We can adjust the size and shape of the bars. We can hide on combat. We can just overall change the scale of this and then lock it in place. And then these are the other windows which you can pull up at the same time. So even though we can come here and switch to all the different options here, we can also at the same time show current meters and stuff like that. These are active, like heal per second meters. These are real-time windows, so it'll be like a graph there. And then we can also show some of our network information if you want to see your latency or things like that, how much bandwidth you're using, some interesting things to track. Then we have the appearance, where we can change the fonts and things like that of the bars. Then, of course, we can adjust the way the information is displayed here. Then we have colors. You can adjust the colors for the windows. And then you can disable or enable modules here. Okay. So that was recount. Now let's see. I believe this one is details, yes. Okay, so details has a little bit of information here. You can create test bars. Let's see. Okay. As we can see, details has a lot of information. We're not going to go through everything one by one. But of course, all of the appearance options are here. You can go through the text of the bars, the look of the bars, title bars, how the window itself looks. We have some options here for streamer settings, which is an interesting thing. It will show you what abilities you're using currently, kind of as a way for people watching back your gameplay, or watching you stream, can kind of see what abilities you're currently using, which is interesting. So you've got some things here of trying to mitigate people, cheesing the meters here. Stuff like that. That's kind of cool. You can turn on or off bar animation. You can adjust your name on the bars if you'd like. You can also add a avatar here. You can turn on the 3D models, of course, which is what the avatars, I think, would connect to. And let's see here. We've got just a ton of options here, really. You can choose where you would like this to show. You can choose what shows when you hover over for the tooltip. Save different profiles here. And then just some quick skin settings, which will adjust a lot of the look of them on the fly without having to get into some of the details here. And then, of course, there are some advanced features here which give you things like death announcements, recaps, potion usage, when cooldowns are used, which is a nice addition to not have to have a separate add-on for. Just letting you know when major cooldowns are blown by different players, especially tanks and healers. Then you've got the type of information that's collected here. The different plugins can be enabled or disabled. You can even get into customizing spells. Just a ton of features here, really. And then in addition, you have some auras that you can create, similar to weak auras, which will basically show you an icon, which can all be set here, whether it's an icon, a bar, or just text. You can choose, whether it's animated, whether it plays a sound, the size of that. You can even assign it to a weak auras group if you want to create a weak aura and then just have it call up that weak aura. And then you can assign it to any of these things: debuffs, buffs, spell casting, timer bars starting, spell interrupts. Just a ton that you can do there. This one here is numeration. So again, we can hold down Alt and left click to move it around. We can right click to switch what we're looking at, current fight or overall data. Right clicking will toggle between what you're looking at. And if you right click again, you can switch between overall and current fight. And then we have the options here to show minimap, hide in combat, record only in instances, merge pets, and then the print options here. Again, left clicking on a player will take you into the breakdown of their spells. Right clicking will exit out. Okay, and lastly here, we didn't have it up visible. I didn't click on it, but we could see it down here on the bottom left. It was showing an overall menu there of what we wanted to see. But so we just clicked into the DPS, and it showed DPS for the current fight. We right click and it brings back up the menu here. We can switch between healing and DPS. We can hover over to see the breakdown of spells. We can do the printing to chat. We can then jump to any of these modes if we want to see threat meters, buffs, debuffs, healing. We can click here to the segment and switch to overall or current fight. And then we have the menu here, so we can again switch between the modes. We can lock the window or hide it. Printing, clearing. You can choose to keep segments if you want to compare. And then we can bring up the configuration menu here. And we can adjust the font size. We can do some shadowing or highlighting of the font. Then we can change bar textures here. The height and spacing of the bars. And then we can change the orientation. So if you have them on the right side of the screen and you'd like it to go left to right or right to left, you can have it grow up if you want to put it at the bottom. You can have it click through so that it's just viewable, but you can't click on it, and you can click things under it. You can show role icons, class icons, class color text. And we have our title bars, whether we're showing these titles, the size and height of all that. Background texture and colors, border texture, color, border thickness, and then the buttons that you'd like to be visible up here. Then we have the background of the window. You can do a lot of things with borders and background, solid colors, or patterns, border thickness. And then automatic switching. So say if you have your damage shown, or say as a tank you have your, damage absorbed or mitigation or whatever showing, but when you go into combat, you can have it then switch to showing threat, and then you can have it return to where it was as soon as you exit combat, which is kind of cool. You can quickly just see between two different things. And then you have a bunch of other options here for resetting data, what's shown in the tooltips, general options, fighting combat. Then we can adjust how the numbers are shown. We can choose to show percentages, damage, DPS. What's logged, deaths. Tons of options here. Then you can disable things to save a little bit of memory. Here we have CC braking, ignore the main tanks. Then we have some themes here, which we can go through here. We can make new themes and save them. We can turn off threat warnings while we're tanking, flash or shake or play sounds, and then multiple profiles. So again, a lot of really good options here. I think these, again, are just going to come down to, I would say, go with what the majority of your group uses. It definitely is beneficial to have everybody on the same meters. It does help for information tracking and things like that. But beyond that, go with the one that has the additional features that you want. Some of these run a little bit more memory intensive, and especially in raiding environments, if you are on an older computer or something, those kind of things may make an effect. But in my experience, memory usage nowadays is not really that bad. I would just probably go with the one that has the options that you need, firstly, and secondly, go with something that's updated frequently, with patch updates and stuff like that, because that'll keep it working and keep it from bugging out on you. These are the kind of add-ons that when they are experiencing a lot of bugs or, Lua errors, they will definitely start making things go weird. So you definitely don't want that. So again, hope you enjoyed this. A lot of great add-ons here. Some very simple and some very in-depth. But all good, and all will get the job done. That will do it for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, remember, pressing the like button is absolutely free. Subscribe and stay tuned for more Game On End.